Hello, welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. I bow in gratitude to those of you joining me in the room, to those of you joining me on Zoom, and to those of you listening to the recording afterward. Welcome to Living from the Heart, a Dharma talk all about this 18-inch journey from the head to the heart. And this is my last talk of this year. So I thought we better focus on what is most important, what is most essential. And simply put, what is most essential, what is the fundamental essence of our spiritual path, is one of unconditional love. Learning how to love everyone. And I'd like to begin with a blessing, one I originally heard from Jack Kornfield, which he attributed to the Buddha. And the blessing goes: others will be cruel, we will not be cruel, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will kill or harm living beings, we will not harm beings, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will be greedy, we will not be greedy, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will speak falsely, maliciously, we will speak truthfully and kindly, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will be envious, we will not be envious, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will be arrogant, we will not be arrogant, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will be unmindful, we shall establish mindful presence, thus we will incline our hearts. Others will lack wisdom, we shall cultivate wisdom, thus we will incline our hearts. I love that line. Thus we will incline our hearts. That is essentially all we need to do. All we need to do is try. Try to be a more loving, kind, compassionate individual. It starts with our intention. This is what it means to incline our hearts, to set the intention, to cultivate wisdom, to establish mindful presence. As the Buddha said, our entire life arises from the tip of our intention. And most of us go through this life essentially sleepwalking, essentially caught up in a trance, not knowing our why, not knowing the true intention behind our actions. We might reach for something to feel good, such as any sort of material, sensual pleasure. And the why we are reaching for that thing is because we ourselves want to feel good. We want to feel content. We want to feel happiness in our own bodies. So our intention always precedes our own actions. And this is crucial on the karma yogic path, this path of action. You will hear again and again how important it is to know our intention, because the action can be the same, but your intention behind it can totally transform what the action is meant to do. A surgeon can cut open a person with the hopes of saving their life. A thief can cut a person with the intention of killing them. The same action can create harm or create positive goodwill in our lives. And we are always reflecting on that intention, because that will also incur karmic bondage. So we are here to set our intention to simply incline our hearts, to point our hearts in the right direction. So as long as you set the intention to love everyone, that is enough. That is all we need to do. because you will encounter incredible obstacles on this path to loving everyone. Even just loving one person is extraordinarily difficult. If you've ever been in or are currently in a romantic, intimate relationship, you know just how hard it is to fully love someone in all that they are. Because relationships have an incredible tendency to push our buttons. And we are here to be mindful of those buttons and to watch our reactions of the mind in our meditative yogic practice. So, just loving one person is already an extraordinarily challenging task meant to challenge us to fully love unconditionally. So, Rainer Maria Rilke says this: for one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks, the ultimate, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation. This is the miracle that happens every time to those who really love. The more they give, the more they possess. So we are here to set the intention, and this is the essential foundation of our spiritual practice. 2000 years ago, Patanjali confirms in Yoga Sutra 1.33, we are here to calm the mind, and we do that by cultivating attitudes of friendliness to the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard towards the wicked. By cultivating these qualities, our mind will retain its undisturbed calmness. So, right there in that single sutra, we have the four Brahma Viharas, the four great immeasurables, the four noble qualities. We have Karuna for compassion. We have Metta for loving kindness. We have Mudita for sympathetic joy, and Upekkha or Upeksha for equanimity. And these are the qualities in the heart that we cultivate in order to love everyone. We are practicing compassion for those that are suffering, practicing sympathetic joy for those that are already feeling joy in their own life, and practicing loving kindness or friendliness for those that are friends, for those that have a certain neutral disposition. And I like that these are called immeasurables because you can't measure these qualities of the heart. They are immeasurable. They are essentially infinite, and we can spend the rest of our life and the next cultivating them. And I also like that they are called the divine abodes. This is the realm of the divine, that place of unconditional love. And we become divine when we live with love in our own hearts. And they're also called the noble qualities, implying that nobility comes from within. And if you can fully embody these qualities of compassion, loving kindness, and sympathetic joy, you yourself can become a noble person. So all you need is your intention. And Martin Luther King Jr. put it this way: everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace. That is all we need to be of service to this world, to give good karma and accumulate good karma in this world is a heart full of grace. A story for you. Ananda was a favorite disciple of the Buddha, and he was sent by the great Lord on a mission. He passed by a well near a village, and he saw Pakati, a girl of the Matanga caste. And Ananda asked Pakati for water to drink. And Pakati said, "Oh, Brahman, I am too humble and mean to give thee water to drink. Do not ask any service of me, lest thy holiness be contaminated, for I am of low caste. And Ananda replied, I ask not for caste, but for water. And the Matanga girl's heart leapt joyfully, and she gave Ananda water to drink. Ananda thanked her and went away, but she followed him at a distance. Having heard that Ananda was a disciple of Gautama Shakyamuni, the girl went to the Blessed One and cried, O Lord, help me, and let me live in the place where Ananda, thy disciple, dwells, so that I may see him and minister unto him, for I love Ananda. The Blessed One, the Buddha, understood the emotions of her heart, and he said, Pakati, thy heart is full of love, but thou understandest not thine own sentiments. It is not Ananda that you love, but his kindness. Accept then the kindness you have seen him practice for you, and in the humility of your station, practice it unto others. There is great merit in the generosity of a king when he is kind to a slave, but there is even greater merit in the slave when he ignores the wrongs which he suffers and cherishes kindness and goodwill to all mankind. He will cease to hate his oppressors, even when powerless to resist their usurpation, and will with compassion pity their arrogance and arrogant demeanor. Blessed art thou, Pakati, for thou art a Matanga, thou will be a model for noble men and noble women. Thou art of low caste, but Brahmins may learn a lesson from thee. Swerve not from the path of justice and righteousness, and thou wilt outshine the royal glory of queens on the throne. So Patanjali is also quite clear that this yogic path, this path of union, this path of love is available to everyone, no matter your background, no matter your history, no matter your gender, race, class, or caste. We can all live from a place of love. And on this path of loving everyone, it's important to recognize that you can't fake it. Ram Dass was put in this own quandary when he was told by his guru, Nareem Karoli Baba. Ram Dass was told, love everyone. And Ram Dass said, sure, no problem, I can do that. And then his guru gave him a second instruction, and he said, and tell the truth. Love everyone and tell the truth. And Ram Dass was put in quite the quandary with these two instructions, because how are you supposed to love everyone and tell the truth? Especially if you're living in community, if you're living in the Sangha, if you're living in the ashram or in a Gurukulam, inevitably, after only a few days, you will find people getting on your nerves. You will find one person talks too much and another person's a bit too messy and another person rubs you the wrong way. And then you think, how can I love everyone and also tell the truth? And the only way to reconcile these two instructions is to authentically love everyone, despite the ways that they might irritate us, to find a larger or deeper perspective that sees beyond surface level behaviors of which we have our own mental reactions to, and sees underneath those to the soul level, to the heart level, that sees the good that lies in the heart of every human being. So, in loving everyone, we must be authentic in our love. That is the only way. We can't fake it. We can't pretend. We can't hide our true thoughts as we love others. We must come from this place pure of heart, full of grace inside of us. And this is why we practice. This is why this is a daily, continuous practice. Because, first of all, if we are to serve others and we are to save others, we must make sure that we ourselves have progressed along this path. You cannot save somebody from drowning if you yourself are also drowning. You must find yourself on firm footing first in order to pull somebody drowning from the water. So we can turn to Shantideva for what we are trying to cultivate in ourselves to be of service to others. In the way of the Bodhisattva, we have these blessings. May I be a guard for those who are protectorless, a guide for those who journey on the road. For those who wish to go across the water, may I be a boat, a raft, a bridge. May I be an island for those who yearn for landfall, and a lamp for those who long for light. For those who need a resting place, a bed. For all who need a servant, may I be their slave. May I be the wishing jewel, the vase of plenty, a word of power and of supreme healing. May I be a tree of miracles, and for every being, the abundant cow. Such wonderful imagery for what it does mean to be of service to others. We are a guard for those who need protection, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those that need to cross water. And I love that final line, and for every being, the abundant cow. Because for those of us from the West, it might seem like an idea that's come out of left field to be a cow for others. But of course, you go to India and cows are sacred. And why are they sacred? Because, of course, they do produce a nutritious and nourishing nectar. When you look into the yogic diet, yes, vegetarianism is a huge part of it because it's a way to practice ahimsa or not harming. But so too, dairy is often a crucial part of the yogic diet when you eat your paneer and eat your mango lassis. And that is one of receiving the gifts that the cow offers with your cheese and yogurt and other milk products. So the cow is worshipped because it gives us nourishing food and liquid without necessarily needing anything in return, of course, other than its own food. So the cow is abundant for what it does for us. So we too are trying on this path of loving everyone, on this karmic path of selfless service to be of service to others. And it's the selfless piece that becomes so crucial, not getting so caught up in our own stuff, but being of service to all sentient beings. Another story for you. A well-known thief had heard of a great guru who is often given great offerings by the public. So, when the guru was out of his house, the thief went to the guru's hut and started to put many of the guru's things into his own bag. While this was happening, the thief heard the guru come to his front door, and the thief ran with his bag of stuff out the back door. Suddenly, he saw the guru chasing after him, and he became deeply worried the guru was going to catch him and turn him into the police. Finally, the guru did catch up with the thief and said, Wait, here, you forgot my shoes. And the guru handed them to the thief. And with stories like this, of course, at that moment, the thief realized that being happy, that being free from suffering, was not about getting all of our wants, but by having no wants. And that being happy with nothing was much better than being happy with having a lot of things. And that thief himself resolved to be the guru's student. So, in this path of service, we are here to give, which is another way to think of letting go. Henry Nguyen put it this way: every time I take a step in the direction of generosity, I know I am moving from fear to love. So, when you first learn about the yamas and the niyamas and the Ashtanga path, some of them seem really obvious. Okay, ahimsa, non-harming; satya, non-lying or truthfulness. And then we even have toward the end non-greed, aparigraha, or non-covetousness. And this is also an essential part of our path. We are not here to accumulate many things, but here to give the things we have away. Knowing that, of course, this amazing thing we call love does not operate in the same material reality of other things. If you give away love, you end up having more in return. It's not something you have to divvy up with the people in your life. So there is an incredible practice known as lojong, which literally means giving and taking, where in a meditative practice, you envision taking on all the suffering of all sentient beings in the world and giving out nothing but light. A powerful way to do this is to imagine yourself breathing in heavy, smoky, gray air and breathing out nothing but cool, clear, pure light. You might think about bodhicitta, this capacity of awakening within us all that is like alchemy. It's able to transform people's suffering, the darkness of people's suffering, into light. And that can seem intimidating at first, taking on other people's sufferings. And according to Pema Chodron, at one point, someone asked a Tibetan Lama if he was afraid that by breathing in others' suffering during Tonglen meditation practice, he would catch it. To this, he replied that nothing would make him happier than to take on their pain so they could be free of it. When someone can say this, a profound shift has taken place. His greatest happiness comes from realizing the equality of himself and others. Whatever pain he experiences in the process is not a deterrent. So, on this path and practice of loving everyone, some of the obstacles include our own greed and covetousness. Some of the obstacles include our own unwillingness or fear around taking on the suffering of others. And perhaps the most challenging task of them all is giving love to others who cause harm, who wish to cause harm, and have caused harm to both ourselves and others. And this ultimately is the final test. In this path of loving everyone, what does it look like to love those who you have the most difficult time loving? When you hear the word unconditional love for all beings, you might think about which beings you are tempted to withhold that love from. And it will tend to be the beings that do cause suffering, often for many people. Another story for you. Father Sullivan's Sunday sermon was called Forgive Your Enemies. He asked how many of the congregation had forgiven their enemies, and about half held up their hands. He then repeated his question, how many of you have forgiven your enemies? And eventually, about 80% of the congregation held up their hands. He then repeated his question once more, and all held up their hands except for one elderly lady. Miss O'Malley, are you not willing to forgive your enemies? To which she replied, I don't have any enemies. Miss O'Malley, that is very unusual. Please tell the congregation how a person cannot have a single enemy in all the world. And Miss O'Malley sweetly replied, I'm 93 years old, and I outlived every one of those witches. So that's certainly one strategy, to simply outlive your enemies, and then you don't have to come to the task of forgiving them. And that's just forgiving one's enemies, which is an extraordinary obstacle because it can certainly seem like approving or seem like condoning of certain behaviors. But forgiveness is an internal shift and an internal letting go of resentment and an acknowledgement that you deserve peace and joy and happiness no matter what others have done to you. But that's just forgiving your enemies. So, what does it look like to love your enemies? And this is an essential part of our spiritual practice. This is not just me saying this. This is what saints, gurus, and the sacred texts have said for thousands of years. We can turn to Matthew 5:44-45. However, I say to you, love your enemy. It's not just love your neighbor, it's love your enemy. Bless the one who curses you. Do something wonderful for the one who hates you. And respond to the very ones who persecute you by praying for them. For that will reveal your identity as children of your heavenly Father. He is kind to all by bringing the sunrise to warm and rainfall to refresh, whether a person does what is good or evil. So even the Buddha used the metaphor that a tree offers shade to the axeman who wishes to destroy it. This is the ideal of which we are aspiring to. That's another way I often think about our intentions. You can also think of it as a chosen ideal. It's what you have chosen to be the most important thing in this life, the most important place to live from. Understanding you might not fully live up to your chosen ideal. That is why it is an ideal. But what matters most is that you have set the intention and you are inclining your heart. Again, we can turn to a sacred text. The Majjhima Nikaya is a collection of 152 discourses in the Pali Canon of the Theravadan school of Buddhism. And it goes like this. Monks, even if bandits were to carve you up savagely, limb by limb, with a two-handed saw, he among you who let his heart get angered, even at that, would not be doing my bidding. This is the Buddha speaking. Even then, you should train yourselves. Our minds will be unaffected, and we will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic with a mind of goodwill, with no inner hate. We will keep pervading these people with an awareness imbued with goodwill, and beginning with them, we will keep pervading the all-encompassing world with an awareness imbued with goodwill. Abundant, enlarged, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. That's how you should train yourselves. So it might seem like a tall order, but it's actually a very promising one. The Buddha says, and Patanjali says, that you can do it. You have everything it is that you need. There's a story of an adult who goes to a teacher and says, I have no idea how to write. No one ever taught me how to write. And the teacher said, well, can you draw a line? And the person says, yes, I can draw a line. And the teacher asks, can you draw a circle? And the person says, yes, I can draw a circle. The teacher says, you have everything that you need in order to write. All you have to do is figure out how to combine your lines and your circles in the right way. In the same way, you have everything it is that you need. No matter your history, no matter what has happened or hasn't happened in your life, no matter your race, gender, sex, class, or caste, you have Buddha nature. You have Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness. You have an untouched diamond of shining light inside of you. And we can count on that as we embark on this practice of training the mind, inclining our hearts in the directions of our chosen ideal. No, it won't be easy. to forgive our enemies, to love our enemies, to even extend love, kindness, and compassion to those that do harm. But it will be a path of reward beyond measure. And this is true freedom. This is true awakening. One final story for you. It's one I like to tell. Once upon a time, there was a great king who came to power. And the king instructed all of his generals to go all through the land and make sure every single citizen of his land submitted to this king's power. So the generals went from town to town to town, and everyone submitted to the king's power. Finally, in one small town, the general heard of a certain man who refused. And the general went to this man's hut, drew his sword, and said, "Don't you know who I am? I could take my sword through your belly, and I wouldn't bat an eye." And this man, sitting in the full lotus position, gently looked up at the general and said, "Don't you know who I am? You could take your sword through my belly, and I wouldn't bat an eye." That is true freedom. This is the mind that we are training to remain still, to remain at peace, so that we may awaken and find true liberation, to find a power stronger than any political power. So we start our day with our intention. We return to our meditation cushion, we return to our yogic mat and set this intention. This is our mindfulness practice. So I'd like to close with this school prayer by Diane Ackerman. In the name of the daybreak and the eyelids of morning, and the wayfaring moon and the night when it departs, I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself humbly as a guardian of nature, as a healer of misery, as a messenger of wonder, as an architect of peace. In the name of the sun and its mirrors, and the day that embraces it, and the cloud veils drawn over it, and the uttermost night, and the male and the female, and the plants bursting with seed, and the crowning seasons of the firefly and the apple, I will honor all life, wherever and in whatever form it may dwell, on earth, my home, and in the mansions of the stars. Let us return, straightening the spine, relaxing the shoulders, tuning into that pure light inside of you, the bodhicitta, the vast universal altruism, the Brahman, Brah meaning to expand, a great expanse, a vast, radiating light emanating through all things. Each breath is Brahman. Each moment is enlightenment. And that light inside of you resides inside each and every human being. And as the saying goes, just chant the name of God, and love will teach you directly. Just chant the name of God, and love will teach you directly. And the scriptures are quite clear. Om, the pranava, is God's name and form. That's all you need. Chanting the Om, imagining the light of your own heart emanating out to encompass all beings. So let us close out this practice with 3 Oms together. Exhaling and inhale to Om. 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 The love and light in my heart honors the love and light in your heart. And when we come from this place, we are one. Namaste.